My name is Alex Turner, and I live in a quaint little neighborhood on the outskirts of Boston. Nestled amidst lush greenery and serene surroundings, my house exuded a comforting vibe, with its warm wooden exterior and a well-tended garden adorning the front yard. Inside, the cozy interior welcomed me with its familiar scent of home. The living room boasted a fireplace, perfect for chilly evenings, and bookshelves filled with my favorite novels adorned the walls. As a software engineer, my weekdays were often filled with the hum of computers and the clacking of keyboards. I relished the peace and quiet of my weekends, craving moments of solitude to unwind from the hustle and bustle of city life. One particular Friday evening, I decided to indulge in some well-deserved relaxation at home. Little did I know, this decision would plunge me into an unexpected and harrowing ordeal. It was well past midnight when I was jolted awake by strange rustling sounds emanating from the living room. Instantly alert, my senses heightened as adrenaline surged through my veins. While most might have dismissed the noise as harmless, my gut told me otherwise. With cautious steps, I ventured out of my bedroom, my heart pounding in my chest. As I cautiously made my way towards the living room, my heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing loudly in the silence of the night. The air was thick with tension as I crept closer, my senses on high alert. The rustling sounds grew louder, mingling with the creaking of floorboards underfoot. As I reached the threshold of the living room, a sight that greeted me froze me in my tracks. A group of masked intruders stood amidst the darkness, their ominous silhouettes illuminated by the faint glow of the moon filtering through the curtains. Their presence shattered the tranquility of my home, sending shockwaves of fear coursing through my veins. Panic threatened to overwhelm me, but I forced myself to remain calm. With a quick intake of breath, I made a split-second decision to retreat to the safety of my bedroom. With careful steps, I backed away from the living room, careful not to make a sound that might alert the intruders to my presence. Once safely inside of my bedroom, I quietly closed the door behind me, the soft click of the latch echoing in the silence. With trembling hands, I reached for my phone, my fingers fumbling slightly as I dialed 911. The minutes stretched on endlessly, each second feeling like an eternity as I waited for help to arrive. Despite the fear gnawing at my insides, I clung to the slim hope that the police would arrive in time to thwart the intruders' plans. In the meantime, I gripped the firearm tucked away in my bedside drawer, my fingers trembling slightly as I prepared for the worst-case scenario. In the darkness of my room, time seemed to stand still as I waited with bated breath for the sound of sirens heralding the arrival of law enforcement. Each passing moment felt like an eternity, the minutes stretching on endlessly as I prayed for salvation. Finally, the shrill wail of sirens pierced the night, signaling the cavalry's imminent arrival. Relief flooded through me, mingled with a lingering sense of apprehension. Would the police be able to apprehend the intruders before it was too late? As the minutes ticked by, the tension reached its zenith. Then, like a beacon of hope, the flashing lights of police cruisers illuminated the darkness, their arrival a welcome sight in the midst of chaos. With a sense of deep gratitude enveloping me like a comforting embrace, I strained my ears to catch the fading echoes of chaos outside. The excitement gradually subsided, replaced by the authoritative voices of law enforcement. As I sat in the silence of my room, my mind replayed the events of the night, each moment imprinted in my memory with vivid clarity. But abruptly the screams began, followed by gunshots. They echoed through the night air. Holding my breath, I listened as the firing intensified, each shot interrupted by the shouts of intruders and officers alike. The sounds of the shots seemed to last for an eternity, echoing through the night. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the firing ceased, replaced by an eerie silence that hung heavy in the air. In the silence, I could hear the muffled voices of law enforcement officers moving with purpose and determination, their footsteps echoing through the house, a testament to their unwavering resolve in the face of danger. I listened with a sense of profound relief as the voices of the law enforcement officers grew louder. Slowly but surely order was restored to the once chaotic night, The threat was neutralized and the criminals were caught. After that fateful night, as I took another look at the peaceful surroundings of my home, I couldn't help but feel a deep gratitude for the safety that surrounded me. It had been scary indeed. Thank God everyone was unharmed. The criminals got the punishment they deserved, going to prison for many years. My name is Ethan, and now I'm going to tell you a story that happened to me in 2013 in the bustling city of New York. I am an ordinary teenager living in a modest apartment with my parents. Life in the city always seemed bright and full of possibilities, but one fateful night everything changed. It was an ordinary night. The sky was colored in orange hues as the sun began to descend behind the city's skyline. My parents had to attend a last-minute work event. I was left home alone for the evening. As darkness gradually enveloped the city, I found myself alone in our apartment, the silence broken only by the distant sounds of traffic and occasional sirens. Suddenly, the familiar hum of electricity stopped, plunging the apartment into total darkness. At first, I felt a rush of shock and confusion, my heart pounding with the sudden change. Panic threatened to overwhelm me, but I knew I needed to stay calm and make sense of the situation. Rummaging through the drawers, I searched for candles or a flashlight to illuminate the darkness. Fumbling in the dim light, I heard something that made my blood run cold, footsteps echoing the silence. When I realized that someone had broken into our apartment, a rush of adrenaline ran through my veins, urging me to take action. In that moment, instinct kicked in and I realized I needed to act quickly. Rather than risk a confrontation, I made the decision to hide in the basement, the safest place I could think of. With shaky hands, I quietly made my way downstairs, my heart pounding in my chest. Hiding in the darkness, I strained my hearing for the slightest sign of movement upstairs. With trembling hands, I reached for my phone, fumbling my fingers across the screen in the dark and dialing 911. The phone rang once, twice, before finally connecting to emergency services. My heart pounded in my chest as I waited for someone to answer, and every moment seemed like an eternity. 911, what is your emergency? Came a voice through the receiver. That sound was a lifeline in the darkness. Hello, please, is someone in my house? I blurted out in a voice shaking with fear. I'm alone, and I don't know what to do. The dispatcher's voice was calm and reassuring as he advised me to stay on the line and remain calm. With their guidance, I gave them as much information as I could. Our address, the developing situation, and the sounds I heard from above. As I spoke, my eyes darted around the dimly lit basement, every shadow seeming to bode danger. But the dispatcher's firm voice held me steady, guiding me through the chaos and uncertainty. Help is on the way, Ethan, the dispatcher said, and their words were a beacon of hope in the darkness. Take cover and wait for the police to arrive. You're doing great. With those words ringing in my ears, I clung to the phone like a lifeline, listening intently for any sign of movement upstairs. The minutes dragged on, each one seeming like an eternity, but I kept hope alive, knowing that help was on the way. As I waited, the minutes stretched into eternity, tension in the air. Every creak of the floorboards sent shivers down my spine, and I prayed for help to arrive. Through the narrow slit in the basement door, I watched the intruders roam our house, their movements purposeful and sinister. My heart sank with each passing moment, fear threatening to consume me completely. All I could do was wait, hope and pray for a resolution to this nightmare. Finally, the silence was broken by the sound of sirens announcing the arrival of the police. Relief swept over me as I heard the officers rush into the apartment, their voices commanding and authoritative. With trembling hands, I watched as they apprehended the intruder, ending the agonizing ordeal. As the chaos subsided and the apartment was flooded with light again, I couldn't help but feel immense gratitude. The police had acted quickly and decisively, keeping me safe and putting an end to the terror that had gripped me. In that moment, I realized how fragile life can be and vowed never to take it for granted again. When the police apprehended the intruder and ended the horrifying ordeal. I couldn't help but wonder who this man was and what he wanted. The perpetrator turned out to be a desperate man who had fallen on hard times. He was struggling to make ends meet, facing mounting debts and financial difficulties. In moments of desperation, he resorted to breaking into homes in search of valuables to sell, hoping to alleviate his plight. When the police questioned him, his story unfolded, revealing a tale of desperation and despair. He had no intention of hurting anyone, but only wanted to find a way to survive in a world that seemed to offer him no other options. In his eyes, breaking into our apartment was a last resort, a desperate attempt for a better life. Although his actions caused us fear and uncertainty, I couldn't help but feel a prick of sympathy for this man. He was a victim of circumstances forced into desperate measures by forces beyond his control. It was a sobering reminder of the inequality that exists in our society and the lengths people are willing to go to in order to survive. In the end, the perpetrator was arrested and taken into custody, his fate now in the hands of the justice system. But as I reflected on the events of that night, I couldn't help but wonder what could have been done to prevent such desperation from driving someone to such extremes. I remembered the events of that night long after the ordeal was over. I had trouble sleeping, haunted by memories of fear and uncertainty. Every creak of the floorboards made my heart pound, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. My name is Michael, and now I'm going to tell you a story that happened to me in 2017 in the bustling city of San Francisco. I'm a regular guy living in a cozy apartment in the heart of the city. My life revolves around my job as a software engineer, and in my free time, I enjoy exploring the diverse culture and nightlife of San Francisco. My apartment is a modest but comfortable space decorated with a few pieces of art and filled with the warm glow of soft lighting. It is my sanctuary in the midst of urban chaos, a place where I can relax and unwind after a long day at work. One fateful evening, after a particularly exhausting day at the office, I came home exhausted, wanting nothing more than to sink into a comfortable bed and forget about the stresses of the day. But as I approached my apartment door, I was overcome with a sense of unease when I noticed that it was slightly ajar. In the silence of the night, the sight sent shivers down my spine. With my heart pounding, I carefully pushed the door open and stepped inside, my senses on high alert. The air was filled with tension as I looked around the dimly lit interior of my apartment for any sign of intruders. Everything seemed to be in place, but the foreboding sense of foreboding remained a shadow. As I headed for the bedroom, a noise from behind me made me freeze like a halt. The hair on the back of my neck stood up as I slowly turned to face the source of the sound. A shadowy figure lurked in the darkness, its presence ominous and threatening. Before I could react, the stranger sprang into action with lightning speed, lunging toward me with deadly intent. My instincts kicked in, and I barely caught the glint of the knife before pain exploded throughout my body in a flurry of stabbing blows. I jerked back, my mind reeling from the shock of the attack. Desperation fueled my survival instincts. I lunged at my attacker, trying to take the weapon away. Moments later, I had the knife in my hands. I pounced on the attacker, who was blocking my escape route. In the chaos of the struggle, I managed to land several strong blows, throwing the attacker off for a moment. I took the opportunity to break free of their grip and ran out of my apartment, my heart pounding in my chest and blood pounding in my ears. I stumbled down the hallway, each step causing waves of agony to run through my battered body. The world swam in a haze of pain and confusion as I staggered toward the safety of my neighbor's door, my only thought to seek help before it was too late. With trembling hands I knocked on the door, my pleas for help muffled by the roar of adrenaline in my ears. Thankfully, they answered quickly, a mask of shock and concern frozen on their faces when they saw me, bloodied and bruised, on their doorstep. They wasted no time in contacting the authorities, and within moments, the flashing lights of police cars illuminated the darkness, heralding the arrival of rescue. The paramedics treated my wounds gently and efficiently, Their soothing words were a balm to my frayed nerves, helping me stabilize the situation. Thanks to the description I provided and the evidence left behind by my attacker, the police wasted no time in launching a full-scale manhunt. Their swift action and tireless dedication ultimately led to the apprehension of the perpetrator, ensuring that justice would be served for the crime committed. As the investigation delved deeper into the twisted psyche of criminal, a chilling portrait began to emerge of a man driven by a dark and insatiable thirst for power and control. Born into poverty and obscurity, he had clawed his way to the top through a combination of cunning and ruthlessness, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. In the days that followed, I encountered a whirlwind of emotions, from fear and anger to gratitude and relief. The scars of that agonizing night will forever be a reminder of the fragility of the human body,